If you are moving to Minnesota from any other state that isn't cold, doesn't have a ton of snow, then you are definitely going to want to watch this video, so stick around. How's it going, y'all? My name is Jesse Lynch, and this YouTube channel is devoted to two things. First of which is teaching people the ins and outs of buying, selling, and investing in real estate. The second of which is showing off the amazing place that I live and teaching people about it, which is the Twin Cities of Minnesota. And if either of those things appeal to you, do us both a favor, subscribe to this channel, click the little bell to get notified. While you're at it, while you're sitting there right now, do me a favor, just give a thumbs up to this video and say what's up in the comments. I would appreciate it. This YouTube channel is growing rather quickly, especially I would say given how specific it is. So thank you to all the subscribers that have gotten recently. I appreciate you and I look forward to meeting you someday. And real quick before we move on, today I had a closing with some people who found me on YouTube from Oakland. They moved to the Twin Cities. They're amazing people and it was truly a blast helping them. They got a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood. It was an absolute treat to show them around and ultimately get them into this amazing place that they get to make memories in for years to come. So thank you to them. And also, in a week ago, I had a close with some other people, and in a week from now, I have a close with some other people, all of whom found me on YouTube. And I promise you will be hard pressed to find anybody who will work harder for you, specifically who will work harder trying to get you familiar with this area. Obviously, I do all these videos, all these virtual tours specifically about Minnesota, and I will continue that approach of education and immersion as we look at houses if you do end up asking me to be a real estate agent, which I hope you do. But sorry, enough of that. I know that why you're watching this is maybe you're moving here, maybe you're just renting here, right? And so you don't need a real estate agent, but I still want to be helpful, and that's what this video is. This video is a list of must-have items and also some are nice to have items if you are going to brave a winter here in Minnesota in the Twin Cities. So let's dive into this video. Okay, a couple of ground rules. Number one is that I have 4 sections. Okay, I'm going to break this up into 4 sections: for your car, for your home, for your kids, and for you. Okay, you may have seen me talk about some of this stuff in other videos, but I promise it's not just repeat stuff. There's definitely some repeat stuff, but I want this video to be a standalone video, right? If this is the only video of mine you watch, I want it to be valuable. So for your car, the important thing that you could have are good tires. Having bad tires in the winter is a bad idea. And more than likely, you will get into an accident or you will go off the road and ruin your car or at least endanger your car or whatever. And look, you can have a car that's technically good in the winter, but if you have bad tires, it doesn't matter. You could have 8-wheel drive, and if they're totally slick tires, I don't think that's really going to help. Okay, this next thing, it is definitely not a must-have, but it is a luxury that will make life a lot easier, and that is a car starter. Specifically like a remote starter. There's a few different kinds. There's one where you have to be like relatively close to your car, maybe like a block away at most, and then it'll start your car remotely. There's ones that maybe like have a range of like a mile or something, and those are amazing. And then there are ones that are basically connected to your phone, which like from anywhere in the world you can start your car as long as you have phone service. So those are crazy, and obviously that would be very helpful if, say, you are at the Mall of America and it's freezing cold outside and you've been in there for 4 hours and you're across the mall. You can start your car, and by the time you get out to it, it'll be nice and toasty. Yeah, no matter what, you're gonna have to walk from a store to your car, right? It's gonna be cold from that point to that point. But the real agony of winter in Minnesota is when you walk out to your car and you're just cold and you're frozen and you're tense. That is the bummer. And so if you can avoid it with this car starter, I promise you it will go a long way. Okay, this should probably go without saying, make sure your car has a heater. If you don't have a heater, you are going to be very uncomfortable all the time. Okay, a scraper. A scraper is basically just a device that part of it will scrape ice off the windshield, and then oftentimes it's a scraper and a brush is connected to it. The brush is very important for days like today where we got like 8 inches of snowfall or something. Here's something I just got for my truck, which are really great, and those are WeatherTech mats. So like the floor mats, right? Most vehicles will come stock with like a carpeted floor mat. WeatherTech, maybe you know about this. I would assume if you live in the South where it doesn't snow, I can't imagine you really know about this, but WeatherTech is a company that makes very specifically like form-fitted mats to basically every vehicle out there. And I mean, they're probably not indestructible, but they're pretty close to it. And part of the beauty of them is that they not only cover the floor, but they'll also cover a little bit of the side. So when you have your foot on the gas and then you like rest it to the side, you're not just getting that like soaking wet, or it's not like dripping underneath the carpet thing, right? It's protected. And then the beauty of those is that you can bring it to a car wash or just, undo it and shake it out or spray it off or whatever, and they're back to as good as new. Okay, and that's gonna bring me to another thing, which is for sure a luxury, but if you have a car that you really care about and you want to avoid rust, right? I think a really good investment, which is not that expensive, is like a monthly unlimited pass to a car wash. I think you can get them for as cheap as like $25 a month. And in the winter, and you would know this if you watched my other video about the winter in Minnesota, we salt our roads, and that salt kicks up onto the car and it will rust your car. And the only way, really the only way to fight that is by washing your car often, getting that salt off of the metal of the car. And for sure, it is basically an endless battle in the winter. Like, you're always going to be fighting it. But if you can have an unlimited car wash program, really your car will thank you, and your car will last longer, and your car will look better longer. Okay, and here's another thing that a lot of people wouldn't even consider, right? Like, if you didn't know that this was a thing, then you wouldn't know that you should get basically windshield washer fluid, right? Like the blue stuff that you get from the gas station or whatever, sprays up on your windshield wipers, clean your windshield. Well, if you didn't know, there is basically a version of that does better in the cold. A lot of the time it's purple, and it's the same thing except that it doesn't freeze, when it gets below zero. There's nothing worse than like driving behind a car. It runs over like this sloppy puddle, and it sends a bunch of water and snow and sleet and whatever onto your car, and then you go to clean that off with your windshield wiper fluid, and it doesn't work because it's frozen in the reservoir. Total bummer. So get the purple stuff and you'll be able to avoid that. Okay, and these last 3 things basically just fall into like the idea of like an emergency kit. And there's all sorts of things. People would say blankets and candles and snacks and whatever. There's a million blogs out there about like emergency roadside kits. So just look into one of those. But I would say the 3 most important things are jumper cables, an extra pair of boots that you just leave in your car. Right? Because most of the time you're not wearing like snow boots, right? That are good for like below zero. You're just wearing boots or shoes or whatever. But if you get stuck, you're gonna want some boots that you can like walk in the snow in and not, lose your feet to the cold. And speaking of getting stuck, what is not a bad idea is to have like a small shovel of some sort. They make like collapsible shovels that maybe get like this big, and they're not the most efficient thing in the world, but they're definitely more efficient than like scooping with your hands or whatever. So a shovel, like a collapsible shovel, is a good idea. And then the last thing that I would leave in my car, and I actually do it all the time because I'm crazy and I don't like to wear a coat. I specifically don't like to wear a coat in the car, but that is basically just to leave a like very warm winter coat in your car. Specifically, I mean, maybe you leave the house and it's 30 degrees, right? It's like a pretty decent day, but by the end of the day, it gets to be 0 degrees. And then something happens to your car, you get stranded, and you only have like your kind of warm coat and, your shoes. You're gonna want your warm coat and some boots if that happens to you. Okay, now we are moving on to things to have for your home. Okay, number 1, I'm going to say this is especially if you have some old house that isn't well heated, and also especially if you are from a much warmer climate, you're probably going to want a space heater, right? Just a heater that plugs into the wall that you can just point straight at you if you happen to be cold in a house. Especially if you're renting and you can't control the heat, then that is going to be a very good thing for you to have. Okay, which also kind of brings up this other point, right? If you have an older house that's like drafty, a lot of times the draft comes through the window because a lot of times there's like a single pane of glass on those older windows, which by the way is really just generally that isn't insulated at all, right? That just lets cold air seep through a single pane of glass. But they do make this stuff. I think specifically 3M and probably other companies make this stuff. And fundamentally all it is like plastic, right? And it's a little ugly. It just kind of is what it is. But if you have a particularly drafty window, they sell this stuff. It's like an insulating layer, and all you're doing is putting plastic up against the window. And what that does is it sort of creates this like inside layer of air that sort of insulates the rest of the house from the outside. Obviously it's not like perfect, but it does cut down on draft, and it also does sort of like add that little buffer. And while we're specifically on the cold side of things, I'm gonna say that having a good throw blanket, right? Like a nice wool blanket, specifically like a Pendleton or a Faribault Mill. Shout out to Faribault Mill. They're local and they make amazing wool blankets that will literally last forever. And if you find that you are particularly cold, they do make electric blankets that plug into the wall, and they will basically, I mean, that is like a blanket of warmth like no other. So maybe if you find that you don't generate enough heat under a blanket, a heated blanket is a good choice. Just be careful. I don't know. That seems risky. But my grandma Betty, she had one of those her entire life, and she used them all the time, and you know, she was fine. And I imagine that technology was less safe than the electric blankets today. Okay, and then there's two things that specifically apply to the entry of a home that you are going to want. And the first of which is like an entry rug that specifically has rubber underneath the bottom. Okay, not just some like cool looking hipster knit rug, okay? As cool as they might be, you want a rug that has a rubber layer underneath it, so when water drips through, it gets stopped by the layer of rubber underneath. And then the second thing for the entryway is basically a boot tray. Okay, boot tray is like maybe, I don't know, this big by that deep. And all it is basically a piece of plastic that either you put like a shoe rack on top of, or you just set your boots in there, because otherwise you're gonna wreck your floor. Even if the floor is tile, you're going to wear away at that tile much faster if there's just constantly water on it, right? Okay, and then the last two things for your home are all for outside and basically dealing with the snow and the ice outside on your driveway, on your sidewalk. So it's kind of a two-parter, right? A shovel, for sure, you're gonna want a shovel of some kind. Better than a shovel would be a snow thrower. Is okay. They tend to be smaller. And generally our snows here are too wet to just have a snow thrower. You need a snow blower, right? Which has not only just the blades, but it blows the snow out, and they are much more powerful. And so definitely don't buy like the cheap little snow thrower thing. It will be a waste of your money, and you will look at your neighbor who has the nice snow blower and just be full of envy, and also feel dumb because you bought this crappy thing that literally you might as well just shovel. And then the last thing for that is some kind of a snow melt, right? Specifically, you can just use sand. It does about as good of a job, or you can use salt, or you can use like specific products that are called snow melt products. But one thing that I really want to warn you about, and that I think you should be conscious of, is that there are pet-friendly snow melts. And even if you don't have a pet, and most people just think dogs when they think of this, but even if you don't, I still think that it is smart to use it, because let's be honest, people walk with their dogs down your sidewalk and then onto your driveway, and it's just generally like, it's just not good for dogs. And I think there are plenty of pet-friendly options that it's not gonna break the bank to get something like that. In fact, it might even be cheaper. Okay, and now onto the section that specifically if you have kids, what do you need to have for your kids? Some of these things are the same as things that you're gonna want for yourself, but I'm just gonna go over this list fairly quickly and we will get through it. Okay, a winter coat, like a nice warm winter coat, okay? Probably with a hood, maybe with little mittens that connect to the wrist so they don't lose them. That's a life hack for kids who lose stuff. Snow pants, okay? Snow pants are like a coat for your legs, okay? So they just keep your legs Super warm, they go on the outside. You have normal pants on and then you slide your snow pants over them and they keep your legs very warm, specifically if a kid wants to go play in the snow, which they all do because it's the best. So get snow pants for your kids. A pair of boots, hat and gloves, or mittens. To be honest, I don't even know what are the difference. Are mittens, yeah, mittens have like the 4 and the 1, and gloves have all the fingies, and thicker socks. Okay, and then if you have all those clothing items for a kid, they should be pretty set. So then some other things. If you have like an infant in a car seat, you want to get a cover for the car seat to keep them warm. They kind of have their own little cocoon in there, and also snow doesn't fall on their face, right? Aquaphor for chapped cheeks, okay? Little kid chapped cheeks, you get some Aquaphor. It's like a lotion. It does wonders. Boogie wipes, okay? And that's literally the brand. That's just not me just being a weirdo. Boogie wipes, apparently they're great for kids specifically in the winter because, you know, it gets all dry. I'm not going to talk about it. It's gross. A humidifier for the bedroom because, again, it gets dry. So we want to add humidity to the room, and don't overdo it, okay? Don't crank a humidifier in your house, you know, whether that be the kids' room or anywhere else, because one thing that you want to avoid is a ton of moisture on the windows, because then moisture gets on the windows and it slowly drips down onto the window sill, which is wood, and that will rot. That will rot all day long if you let it. So just be aware of just how much humidity you're putting in the air. Okay, and then the 2 fun things for kids, a sled. Every kid loves it. So probably not like a toboggan. That's kind of dangerous. Whether that's like a saucer sled or like a torpedo sled. I'm sure they have crazy sleds now. Or a tube. Tubes are dangerous. For real, I launched off a jump that I didn't even know was there, and I just like landed on my butt and cried the whole way home. I also had a friend, you can't steer them, right? So I had a friend who was going down a hill on a tube, and he turned his back and his head hit a tree. He's going pretty fast. It's crazy. Tubes, they're fun, but they're a little bit reckless. I'd say stick to a sled. You can steer a sled. Okay, and the other fun thing for kids is ice skates, okay? Ice skates are a lot of fun. They're great for activity, and it's also truly, truly a Minnesotan thing to do. So get some ice skates, whether that be hockey skates or figure skates, whatever. It's a lot of fun, and in Minnesota, people like to stay active all year round. That's a good way to do it. Okay, and now for you. And I'm assuming you're an adult, not a child, so this one is for you. A few different winter jackets. Okay, you might have like a daily driver, right? The one that you wear all the time, but I think it's good to have a little bit of variety. It's sort of Papa Bear, Mama Bear, Baby Bear, right? Where you want one that is like truly like an Arctic jacket, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of companies that make these things. I actually got mine in Iceland, which is cool. I love it. But it's nice to have one coat, maybe that has a hood, maybe it has some like fake fur around the front, which yeah, maybe it's like a faux pas, but I truly believe that that helps keep wind out of your face for whatever reason. That could be total BS. I don't know, but I do think it works. And then you want something that's like middle of the road, daily driver. You're not gonna be like sweating in it, right? Because again, you don't wanna get super sweaty, because if you get sweaty in your car because you're wearing a coat and then you walk outside, that sweat is gonna get cold. And then you're gonna feel colder than if you just weren't wearing a coat in the first place. So beware of sweat. And then probably just like a lighter coat, right? For when it's like, you know, like a balmy 30-degree day here in Minnesota, like today. Like maybe like a heavy hoodie. You know, you might be able to get by with like a nice heavy like hooded sweatshirt or something like that. So, okay. I would say 3 different weights of coats. Okay, and then like gloves, mittens, or choppers. Choppers if you're serious about it, which choppers are basically just like leather mittens, right? And they are super warm. And very specifically, if you have to go shovel or snow blow like a driveway and like a sidewalk or whatever, and it's gonna take you like a long time to be outside, choppers are what's up. Also, I apologize if they don't call them choppers anymore. That's what I grew up calling them. So I assume if you ask somebody from Minnesota, do you sell choppers? They'll know what you're talking about. And one note that I wanna say is do not waste your money on stretch gloves, right? I don't even know how to explain stretch gloves if you don't know what they are, but they're like $1 or $2. You can get them from like a Walgreens or a Target or whatever. I'm telling you, they're worthless. You literally might as well not have any gloves on. They're dumb. I mean, I've worn them before. They're stupid. Don't buy them. Also, don't buy them for your kid. It is not warm enough. Maybe it's easy and they like being able to move, but it's not warm enough. Okay, another thing is basically 2 kinds of winter boots, okay? So by that I mean like big, heavy snow boots that you can, you know, play in the snow with, or go sledding, or whatever it is that you end up doing outside, building a snowman, or just shoveling or snow blowing. You want to be able to walk into like 1 foot deep snow without snow getting up and under those boots if you can. And then the other kind would be basically just like daily driver boots, or like maybe very water resistant shoes if you can, like boots, like fashion boots or whatever. Just like a pair of shoes that is to some degree waterproof, that has some nice tread so you don't wipe out on the ice. Okay, and some wool socks. Wool socks in the winter are so nice. It's just so toasty and just like, it's so warm and comforting, and they can get pretty expensive. I would also recommend merino wool if you can. Merino wool, supposedly, it like wicks moisture away from your feet. So if you put merino wool socks on and they start to, your feet start to get too warm, it wicks the moisture away, which ultimately keeps your actual foot warmer. So that's hard to argue with. And also, I would say err on the side of too thick when it comes to wool socks. Okay, and then either a hat or a hood. I don't wear a hat that often, but I do put my hood up a lot. Or I have a hoodie on and then I put 2 hoods up. That's nice too. And then one thing that I think people don't respect enough is a scarf. I guess I don't wear them super often, but if it's cold, if I know I'm gonna be outside a long time, a scarf goes such a long way. Just keeping your neck area warm and and being able to keep your face warm. It's huge, and they're like $10. I think it's some of like the best money you can spend to keep yourself warm. It's just straight up just a scarf. And then if you intend on doing a bunch outside for some day, you can get long underwear. I'll be honest, I didn't even know what long underwear were for, I don't know, until 5 years ago. I didn't grow up wearing them. We didn't wear them. I suppose we wore pants and snow pants, but we never wore long underwear. Maybe it's because we're Scandinavian. I don't know. Okay, but long underwear, they make like a shirt version of long underwear and also a pant version of long underwear. And basically, it's just like a thermal insulator that you can put under your normal pants and under a normal shirt. And it just adds some extra warmth and some girth. Okay, and then the last thing in regards to like apparel at all that I can think of that might be helpful, and it is slippers. They can be like $15 slippers, but in the Minnesota cold, specifically if you have something like a tile floor or concrete floors or something that retains the cold, then having something like slippers is gonna help a lot, because cold feet can be a huge bummer, and that is not some metaphor that I'm trying to make. Okay, and then the last thing that a lot of people don't even know exists is like hand warmers. Okay, I come from the world of photography, wedding photography and fashion shoots and music video shoots, right? We would often end up doing stuff in like crazy cold weather, and specifically stuff where my hands would have to be out, right? Like everybody else gets to like put their hand in their pocket and just be cold, but I would have to be doing stuff with my hands. Right? Like mechanics would have to do stuff with this. I'm sure construction workers who work outside would have to do stuff like this. But when you need dexterity, but it's super cold outside, these hand warmers are amazing. They come in a little packet. They sell them at gas stations. They sell them at places like Fleet Farm or Menards or Home Depot, that kind of thing. It's a little packet, and I don't even know what it is, like a charcoal or some kind of like a sand. And you shake the sand and it warms up. True, it says they last like 8 hours, but really they last like 4 to 5 hours, like reliably. And you can put them in your pocket, and then when your hands get cold, you can put your hand in there, and it's like considerably warmer in there, right? Like your pocket's gonna be like 90 degrees or something like that. So you can put your hand in there, warm your hand up quick, get some of that dexterity back, and then go back to work, okay? Those things are very cool. Okay, and those hand warmers bring me to another thing, which is that I have very dry hands. Not as bad in the summer, but during the winter, my hands get super dry. They'll crack. It's not the absolute end of the world, but it kind of sucks. But I will say that I found what is basically my favorite product to like combat dry hands. And no, this isn't sponsored or anything, I assure you. I just think this product is good, and it's called Working Hands. And Working Hands, obviously I have not used it right now. Pretty dry hands, but it really does work wonders. My routine is basically that I wash my hands, and then while they're still wet, I take a little bit of Working Hands and do that. And truly, it goes a very long way. And I've done a lot of work in the past with my hands. I was building sets where, we're dealing with wood and sawdust and cardboard and stuff that really dries out your hands. And then before that, I was a bartender and a server, washing my hands constantly, always had very dry hands from that. Working Hands, which is by a company I think called O'Keefe's, O'Keefe's, I think. Working Hands is the best. So if you come here and you find that you're dealing with that, use O'Keefe's Working Hands. Okay, and the last thing that would be helpful for you, just like for an individual, is like chapstick, right? Just like people's lips get chapped. It's probably pretty obvious, but that's why I'm just tacking it on the end, you know? We're all friends here. So I hope that that has been helpful. But one thing that I would love to know is what other videos would you like to see me make? Because I love to make these videos, but I really love to do the ones that people request, because then I know very specifically I'm answering this question and I'm not just coming up with these ideas in a vacuum. And like I said at the beginning, if you're thinking about moving here or just buying a house in the Twin Cities, I promise you will not regret getting a hold of me any way you can. Call, text, email, leave me a message on my website, DM me on Instagram, DM me on Facebook, whatever you gotta do, but remember to add me on Facebook first. So whatever you gotta do to get a hold of me, get a hold of me. I promise that myself and any of the team that I work with will take the best care of you. I assure you, you're gonna have a hard time finding somebody who's more passionate about what they do than me, and I truly feel lucky to be able to do it and to be able to help folks like you. So thank you again for watching. I very much look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to meeting you. I look forward to showing you around this amazing place that I live, the Twin Cities of Minnesota. We did it. All right. Love you. Bye-bye.